At 3 years old, one day, she came up to me and she crawled up on my lap and she put her little hands on each side of my face and she said, "Mama, look at me." And I looked down at her. I'm like, "I'm looking at you. Look at me." Like this was important. And she's like, "I chosen you." And I went, "What?" "When I was with God in heaven, I looked down and I chosen you." And she goes, "And I picked you because," she goes, "because your light was the brightest one in that area." And I'm like, "What do you mean, my light?"
This is Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God, because God is speaking to you and me and the church and the world, and here we get to listen in on the conversations. These collisions of heaven and earth could be near-death experience, could be angel encounter. Today, divine intervention, huge divine intervention.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop a factory in the middle of the road. God is still around. Still, that's why you're my favorite podcast, because you say a lot of the things that I think, And I'm like, wow, I can't believe he's saying, God's still busy, God's still around. I'm like, I say that all the time.
Welcome, I'm your host, Trapper Jack, and I chosen you. I did. I chosen you to listen to this episode. Look at me. Look at me. Love this story. Love Kelley in this episode. This began this week. You know how I talk about songs bubbling up in my head seemingly out of nowhere, and we know where that nowhere is? Got one of those this week. Paul Simon's Mother and Child Reunion. I looked at the lyrics, and they're mysterious lyrics, even when you look up why he wrote this song. It says things like, "On this strange and mournful day." Yeah, we've got one of those in this episode. Goes on to say, "Mother and child reunion, only a motion away, only a notion away." Okay, I think we can get there with that. Because the song reminded me of a story we did some 4 years ago with Kelley. This conversation begins at all, this between mother and child, between Kelley and her daughter.
At 3 years old, one day, she came up to me and she crawled up on my lap. She goes, "I got to tell you, you're the best mommy in the whole wide world." I said, "Well, you're the best baby girl in the whole wide world." She goes, "No, Mama, look at me." And she's like, "I chosen you. And I promise next time I'm going to chosen you again." And I went, "What?" And now I'm getting goosebumps because, I don't know if I even believe that stuff, I'm like, what do you mean?" She goes, "When I was with God in heaven, I looked down and I chosen you. And I promise you're the best mommy in the whole world. I'm going to choose you again." And she told me this at age 3. And as she grew a little bit over the years and she became more articulate with language, I will condense this here because this went over her growth. She started to tell me more. And because now she had the words for it. And she told me that basically she remembered before she was born. I get choked up with this. She remembered standing with this being made of incredible light, and that the lights and colors there are unimaginable. We can't even imagine. The brightest rainbow doesn't compare to the colors there. She told me that the love you feel and the joy, there's nothing on earth to compare to it. She goes, "There's not even words for it." And she was with this being, and they talked again with no words, like that telepathic thing you hear about, which I hadn't heard. I didn't even know about near-death experiences back then, I looked into it since and know now, but that was the kind of conversation they were having. And she said there were other beings behind him, but she was mainly focused on this one being beside her. And they were made of light. That's how she described them. They were made of beautiful, they glowed. They just glowed. And she said they looked down at the earth. She goes, "You could see the earth." He had me look down and I saw you, and they wanted me to choose you. There was a reason they wanted me to choose you, but I'm not allowed to remember the reason. But it was ultimately my choice. And she goes, "And I picked you because," this is where it gets hard. She goes, "because your light was the brightest one in that area." And I'm like, "What do you mean, my light?" And I goes, "What was I doing? Was I riding my bike? Was I doing dishes?" She goes, "No, Mommy, when we look down, we don't see the actual people. We all see their lights. And yours was the brightest in the whole area." To this day, I try to keep my light as bright as possible. I try to send God a beacon. And she told me this, and I'll tell you something. She's 27 now. She hates when I talk about it because to her it's like, hey, I don't want any attention on me. And in all the years, even as a child, because I got investigative, I'm a brain nerd, so I would ask her questions, to see if her story changed or it embellished, or she was doing it to get attention or anything. Nothing. Her story never deviated even a drop. She never used it to get attention. In fact, she didn't. She would only talk about it if I brought it up. And then she'd be like, okay, mom, enough. And I remember one time when she was 7, she was sitting on the couch watching Powerpuff Girls. And I sat down next to her on a summer day and I looked over at her and I said, Hill, you know how you remember before you were in mommy's tummy? And she's like, yeah. And she's half watching the TV, half listening to me like, oh God, my mother's at it again. She's going to want to hear the story again. And I said, why do you think God let you remember? And she looked shocked. All of a sudden I got her full attention. She goes, doesn't everybody? And I went, no, honey. That's why I keep asking, no, I don't remember. No, most people don't remember there. She goes, oh, that's really sad. And that's all she said. She thought everybody knew. She thought everybody knew.
She thought everybody remembered too. She still remembers.
She still remembers. She said to me, she still remembers all the details. She calls it up because that's what she called it when she was little. So she still, even as an adult now, calls it up.
This goes away with everybody. I only know one other person who remembers this. This goes away when you're, 3, 4, 5 years old and you get seduced into this world. She has a rare gift. Where's she going in her life? Because this is such a rare gift that God gave her this.
I don't know. And it's her oldest siblings used to give me a hard time saying, oh, you spoil her. You're so overprotective of her because she's the baby. And I kept trying to explain to them, no, it's not because she's the baby. It's because she's special. This is a special gift God gave me, and I can't mess it up. I have to raise her right and protect her and watch over her and make sure that she's good. And you know what's funny? She's 27 now, and I can honestly tell you, I love all my children. I have a stepdaughter who's my daughter, as far as I'm concerned. I have a goddaughter who's my daughter. So my family has grown, and I'm a fierce mama bear for all of them. But she's different, and she's always been different. And she was a joy, a true light and a joy to raise. She never got grounded. She never rebelled as a teen. She never snuck off and snuck a cigarette. All the things that all the other kids did, she just didn't. She's just good.
Is she married? Got kids? What kind of work does she do? What is she doing?
No, she still lives with me right now.
Okay.
She was born with my XLH, so she does have some disability. She has physical disability because of it. She's had surgeries on her legs. I think she's still got 1 foot over there and 1 foot here, so she's not. She's loving and kind, and people. It drives her nuts. People are drawn to her.
I choose you, and I choose you again.
Yeah. And she, according to her, she's saying in our next life, I don't know if I believe that or not, but I'm leaving that up to God. I don't even want to tackle that dilemma.
Yeah. What is that? As Christians, we don't believe in reincarnation in the way of lots and lots of lives. We just keep coming back again and again. No. Maybe, this is a maybe. There is a belief, theory, whatever you want to call it, that during the biblical 1,000 years of peace, this is where the devil's put away in a box, for 1,000 years and let out for a little bit at the very end. But during this time when everybody gets God, there is no temptation. Everybody lives to over 100 years of age. It's just a glorious time on earth. It is to come, still to come, and all of that. The belief by many is that even those who are in hell right now, which is temporary hell, it's not final judgment, it's temporary hell, that they will be brought back into the 1,000 years. They won't have memory of the old, I don't think. I think that's the way this works. They'll be brought back into this 1,000-year period of time and given another opportunity to get it this time without temptation bothering them, although temptation will come out at the end. But given all the knowledge that they need and God and everything's wonderful and all of that, that they will be in God's mercy, he's going to give everybody a chance to live this life without the veil that is over life that we have now, because everything is distorted because of evil. Everything's veiled. There's just not a complete understanding. And during the 1,000 years, oh, that's what this is all about. So during that, if that is the case, that could be what she's talking about, how I will chose you again. Maybe that's what that about. What she was saying is kind of a what if I would choose you again. She's not going to need to choose again. Obviously, both of them get it. They have faith and all that.
If there is such a thing, she says she's choosing me again. And because my light shines really bright, I guess. And she said, that they had her beings, they had a reason. They really were pushing. They were not pushing. They were underlining the importance of this reason that they wanted her to choose me. But there would be no judgment or backlash. It was ultimately completely up to her, she said. Um, she goes, and so they took me. They took her to look down at the earth, and she said, "I could see the earth, like if I was up in a spaceship." Because I asked her, "What do you mean you could see the earth? Like where were you?" And she goes, "I don't know where exactly I was. I was in this rainbow of light and love and awesome feeling." She goes, "But I could see the earth like you would see it from space." But you don't, you see people's lights going. She goes, "It's kind of like if you look up at the night sky, Ma, and you see the stars. It's like that in reverse. We see your starlight. We see your light. We see God's light in you."
We shine like the stars. Isn't that cool? And all of this is actually a backdrop to what happened before Kelley's daughter was born, and a particular prayer that Kelley prayed.
I don't know how to quite start it, but I got pregnant back in 92, and I was finalizing a divorce. My fiance was finalizing his divorce. We had met. He had a daughter from a previous marriage. I had 4 from previous. So we were being the Brady Bunch, and he felt that the pregnancy was the worst possible time, and he was scared and not ready. He didn't want me to go through with it. And so we battled and we argued and we battled and argued more. And finally, he's like, "I don't know if I can do that." And I was like, okay. So finally, I got to the point where I was like, if this is what I'm not going to force this on you. I'm not going to force fatherhood on you, but I'm going against my personal belief. I'm not doing what I want to do, and it's gonna destroy us. I want you to know, if I have to go end this pregnancy, it ends us. And so I, prayed about it a lot, and I kept asking God, "Please, God, I'm not strong enough to fight this on my own, and I'm not strong enough. I already have 4 kids. I'm not strong enough to have another 5th one and be a single mom. And, what am I going to say to this kid? Hey, welcome to the world. Your dad split, because I didn't know what he was going to do. He was panicking. And so I said, you're going to have to intervene. I kept saying that. You're going to have to intervene. Jesus, take the wheel, like that song. You're literally going to have to intervene. So I made the appointment. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And on the day of the appointment, we're going to the place where they terminate pregnancies.
So you're gonna give in. You're giving in.
I'm like a sheep to the slaughter, and okay. I kept saying that, and I kept talking to him. My partner saying, trying to change his mind, and he was just. I think we've talked about it years since. He was like a deer in the headlights. He was just terrified of adding another one to. Because between my 4 and his 1, we already had 5. And he's like, "How are we going to take care of them all?" And he just panicked. But anyway, so I make the appointment, and I had been there maybe a year before with someone. So it's not like the place was unfamiliar to me. And we get the directions, and we go to leave, and we get closer. And when we take this turn where we should be on the right street, the street name's there, it should be right up ahead. Instead, it's like someone took a brick building, like a factory, turned it sideways and dropped it down in the middle of the street. So literally the street went into the wall. Like you could see the street continued, but there's now a brick building, and the side of the brick building is in the way.
A
And I'm like,
building is now in the road.
in the road, in the road. I
How
swear.
how are you seeing that the road continues on the other side?
I don't see that it continues on the other side. The building's too big, but I see that the road continues right up to the wall. Yeah, if we keep going, we're going to just smash into the side of a factory wall made of brick. Um, so, my partner, he starts freaking out thinking we got the directions wrong. So he backs up and he backtracks, and he starts really freaking out, and I'll try to shorten the spot. He stopped at a gas station for directions. The directions were correct. We went back again, brick wall. He stopped and asked a traffic officer. Directions are correct. We followed it again, brick wall. He made me get out and call the place on the payphone, because we didn't have cell phones then. And they checked the directions that they had mailed me. Yep, everything was correct. We followed it, brick wall. He went all the way back, because this was in Boston. He went all the way back to the beginning of the Tobin Bridge and followed it from the beginning of going into that area, step by step, brick wall. He did this probably for about a good 40 minutes. And the whole time I'm just sitting in the car. I won't even look at him. I'm looking out the window. My eyes are like saucers. I'm stunned. And I'm almost afraid to breathe. I'm almost like, could this be? Could he be saving me and my kid? Because I didn't want to do this, And it was almost like I didn't dare breathe. I didn't dare break the. I was afraid, like a fragile bubble, it would be gone, So I just stared out the window in shock, and he kept trying to get there. He tried, I'd say, about a good 15 times. And every time, no matter what he did, brick wall. Finally,
Is he going around the blocks? Is he trying?
He's going around the blocks. He's getting out and talking to the cops. He stopped at a couple of gas stations that were in that neighborhood. He, like I said, made me call and got out of the car with me and stood. So, how you put the phone so two people can hear? Stood there and listened to them say, as I read the directions slowly to them, yep, that is exactly correct. You're about 5 minutes away. You should be here. I
Good.
literally entered the twilight zone.
Yes, you were. You had everything but Rod Serling.
So he's driving his car, and he's getting more and more road ragey too. So he's driving his car up, trying to go up and around or whatever, and all he would get is brick wall.
No matter how he tried to approach, brick wall.
No matter how he tried to approach, the road stopped into the wall.
So not just that one road, but every road basically had a brick wall.
If he tried to go around to the other side, brick wall. If he tried to, take side streets, there would be dead ends, and there was no way to get over to that part, and there was just no getting there. He just kept backing up and trying. Finally, he goes all the way back to the beginning again of the Tobin Bridge. And I'm thinking, okay, he's going to try the directions right from the beginning again. Because he had already done that 3 times. He had already gone back to the very beginning of when the directions began and followed it step by step, and it would still be brick wall. So I'm thinking, okay, he's going to try for round 4. And as he goes back, all of a sudden I happen to look up and notice that instead of, say, heading left to head back that way, he's heading right, which is heading toward the North Shore, heading home. And I look over at him for the first time, and I said, "What are you doing? You're going the wrong way. This takes us back to the North Shore." And all he said, and he's got his hands clenched on the steering wheel, he's like, "Obviously, I can't defeat your God." One tear, just one tear, slid out from underneath his dark sunglasses. And he's like, "I'm afraid, but we're going to have to make it work. I guess we're having a child." And I just started crying, and we went home, and we had a long talk. And that's when he confided he was just terrified he wouldn't be able to afford to feed us all. And we went forward, and we had this beautiful miracle little girl who turned out there was a reason God was putting in extra time to make sure she showed up, because she's not your average kid.
I got to ask something though. In the end, your husband with that tear and your God, and he's mad, but he also realizes he's up against God. Did that change? Did it change him?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
How?
He's not what I'd call religious, but he's way more spiritual. He's way more kind. He's more, I don't know, he's just more loving. And he became he was a good father, but he became a better father after that. And oddly enough, she's the light of his life. I mean, he loves all the children. He loves them all. And he loves them all in their own unique, special way, but that's his baby. You know what I mean? Um, so it definitely had a deep, profound effect on him. And he doesn't, when I talk to him about God, he doesn't roll his eyes at me anymore and huff and be like, "Oh God, here she goes. Yeah, 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 yeah. God, God, God." No, now he's just like, "Yeah, yeah, I know." So he's way more of a believer.
What a crazy experience. Wall,
Yeah,
wall,
beautiful
wall. How long?
wall.
How long did the wall? How long was this driving around going on?
Probably about, I'm estimating, between 40 minutes to an hour of trying to get there. Yeah, because he's pretty stubborn, and
I
and
keep
like I
saying,
said,
did you hear what God just said? What a statement by God.
yeah, I'm gonna drop a factory in the middle of the road, and
What
let's see
a
you get
what
that.
a commentary on life.
Yeah,
A couple of days ago, as I began working on this episode, I opened up the gospel readings for the day, and it was in Matthew, and it's when the apostles ask Jesus a question. They say, "Who's the greatest in heaven?" And Jesus calls a young, it doesn't say how old, it just says a young child over to him and says, "You want to get into the kingdom? You have to be like this. You have to have this kind of humility. You have to be like a child to get into the kingdom of heaven." And Jesus also said, "When you receive one of these little ones, you receive me, and not to despise the little ones." And he spoke of their angels in heaven, always looking to the Father while with these children here on earth. So when we think of these light beams in heaven and looking down to these shining lights that we are, and that when we receive these little ones, we receive Jesus, it puts things in such a completely different perspective than we seem to be looking at it in the world today.
and like I said, she was meant to be.
Kelley's baby was saved for the moment, and the pregnancy went fine. Kelley was actually scheduled for a C-section. It was going to be on a Monday at 11 a.m., Monday at 11 a.m. Trouble happened, and Kelley knew it. She just knew instinctively there was something going on. Something didn't feel right.
Sure enough, as I knew, I was in full labor. So they're like, "Well, we're going to have to do your C-section now. We're not going to be able to do it at 11 in the morning." This is now, by the time they got me in and ready, it's now after midnight. So it's Monday now, the day she was supposed to have her C-section. And long story short, she was born Monday at 3 a.m. instead of 11 a.m. The cord was wrapped more times around her neck than both the obstetricians. They actually called in a second one because they couldn't believe it. She was so tangled up that had she not triggered labor when she did, she would have been a stillborn at 11 a.m. She wouldn't have made it. So the doctors even joked that she pulled a 911. And the funny thing is, she was born on 11/9, and she weighed exactly 9/11. I'm telling you, God's got a sense of humor. So I was like, okay, that's the second time God has personally intervened in this child's life, more than you'd normally see.
Now, Kelley here, from the beginning, has always had God with her. I mean, literally had God with her.
And I somehow got it in my head that I had God in a bottle. And I carried this little glass bottle with me, had it in my little blankets with me and everything. And I was telling everybody, I'm going to be fine. God's in the bottle.
Now, why would she do that? Well, she had some health issues. And so she figured she needed God. So at age 4, she's got this little bottle with God inside. And she would tell everybody, I've got God in a bottle. He's here to help me.
God's in the bottle. I can hear him. He talks to me. I'm not going to be scared.
One day, Kelley received a nudge from God. The nudge was, you got to let me out of the bottle. I need to go help other people too. Other children need help. The world needs help. I need to get out of the bottle.
Time to let God out of the bottle. And I really didn't want to because I kind of got attached to him.
So at that point, Kelley went to talk to her mom who was fixing dinner.
I kept tugging on her apron. Ma, God says I got to do it now. So they took me out on the back porch. And this part, to be honest, I don't clearly remember. So this part here, I'm going based on my parents' recollection of the story. But I went out on the back porch, set the bottle on the railing, gave it a hug, gave it a kiss, said a little prayer, thank God for being with me, opened up the cork, and To my mother's dying day, she swore she saw something come up out of that bottle, like a light, and then gone. She goes, I had no belief at all in what you were saying, I'll be honest. She goes, but I swear to you, I saw something come like a fairy flicker of light. It was very quick, and then it was gone.
So God was finally out of the bottle to help others. But Kelley, as I mentioned, has had a number of health issues. She's vitamin D resistant. Her body just won't absorb the vitamin D. And so she didn't develop the way other kids did.
But back then, my legs were bowed because of the weight bearing and the weakened bones. So I had little bowed legs. I was like a little cowgirl. And they broke both of them when I was 7 and tried to straighten them. So I had big plaster casts on both my legs. I had to learn how to walk all over again.
I remember hearing growing up, rickets. Look out for rickets. You got to have strong bones.
They used to call my disease vitamin D resistant rickets. But I started to realize, because I couldn't run around and keep up with the other kids, I became kind of a book nerd, and I became very intellectual. I kind of thought in my mind, well, my body may not be that great, but my brain is really good.
In terms of faith, Kelley was baptized Catholic, but never received her first communion or the other sacraments.
I was the very sickly child, the youngest of 5, but I was recovering from surgery, and she, we'll get to it. And being the youngest, they never did.
At about age 12, Kelley noticed that everybody seemed to think that they had the answer. If they were Catholic, they had the answer. Baptists had the answer. Lutherans had the answer. Methodist. It's like, nope, I've got the answer. And she thought, well, not everybody can have the right answer. So she started studying all the different faiths, Christian faiths, non-Christian faiths. She kind of she read the Quran. She became very well versed in the different faiths.
I don't remember anyone sitting me down and telling me, oh, there's a God. But I always knew there was a God. Like I was just born knowing, I guess, best way to describe it.
Yeah, you had him in a bottle for a while there.
Yeah, I did. He came and vacationed with me. But so I started on this. That led me to this spiritual path that lasted pretty much most of my life and still continues, where I had this underlying fear of, well, I don't want to choose the wrong religion, and then find out, oh, you messed up, because I don't want to disappoint God, because I wanted to know, well, where am I supposed to go? Where am I supposed to be? And when I hit my 30s, my life dramatically changed by a couple of miraculous events that not only answered that question, but much, much more. And so now I don't say, like, if someone asks me, they'll ask me, like, are you Christian, or are you born again, or whatever? I'll be like, well, I'm just a believer. I love all of it. I love the things in the Catholic faith. I do the rosary. I wear the Miraculous Mary medal, because I've seen, again, witnessed experiences, but I don't put God in a bottle anymore, and I don't put him in a box. I think he's bigger than all of us, and I think he has a purpose and a plan for every one of his children, and I'm not going to tell someone else who might be born again or Baptist or Buddhist or whatever, well, you're wrong, you're on the wrong path. Because I don't know God's plan for them, and I don't know, he may have them exactly where he needs them to be to learn exactly what they need to learn at that exact moment in time, because it's going to lead to something greater. So I don't interfere. I know he's got it.
Let's pause right about here. Then more in this fascinating story with Kelley here on Touched by Heaven. Oh, got an email, and this may apply to you as well. So I got an email that asked me, oh, Trapper, I have a story for you I'd love to share, but do we have to do video? Because we're dabbling more into video now. No. I want your story more than I want your face. And you know how I love your face. And God chose that face for you. So, but either way, I don't care. Either way, I do want your stories here at touchedbyheaven.net. So please come on in. So, video, audio, however you want to do it. What else do I want to tell you? Oh, I want to do a quick Patreon shout out. Thanks, Ashley. Ashley Martin keeps it all going. You do. Somebody told me a long time ago that I had to do Patreon. Why? Well, to keep it going, obviously. But the person said, people want to say thank you. listeners want to say thank you. If something helps change their lives or confirm what they believe or whatever it does for you, sometimes people want to just say thank you in a monetary way. And we are so thankful for that. And that's why there is a Patreon. So you can go to patreon.com or come here to this episode and click your way through to Patreon. And also, thank you, Carissa, for your comments to me about why.
That's can we save that story for another day?
Why? Why? What are you trying to avoid, girl? What? No, I want it now. That you say something like that. I want it now. What happened?
Yeah, I was supposed to do a pay it. You know how you do a pay it forward?
Yeah.
But I was in the Starbucks and I was in the drive-through and I and I was supposed to pay because I get that internal message, that voice, telling me, okay, you're going to do this, Carissa. You're going to pay for this. I go, no. I looked in the rear view. Oh no, I'm not paying. He has a $70,000 or $80,000 SUV. No, I'm not. That's the absolute truth. And I thought, and I know better. I know better not to listen to that voice, but I ignored it. And then it came to me when I was listening, to your podcast that this was the right thing to do, was to give to your venture. Isn't that funny? I'm like, I can't
do it.
That's...
Can I pay for the guy 3 cars back?
Can I pay for that 1998 Honda?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't. That's the absolute truth. You're not supposed to do it like that. And I knew better. I knew, but I let it go. I go, oh no, I'm not doing that.
Thanks, Carissa. Thank you so much for going to patreon.com and searching for Trapper Jack. All right, Kelley, I love you. You're the best. You're the best.
And it was great talking to you. And please keep doing what you're doing. Love hearing other people's stories because it validates for me my own. It's very uplifting. It's very inspiring. And as soon as your podcast lands, I'm on it. It's like, it's the highlight of my week. It's my favorite thing. And I keep telling everybody that'll listen, oh, you got to check this out. You got to check out this podcast. It's a perfect balance where it's not too, as I call it, Bible thumpy, it's real. It's everyday people going through everyday experiences, and finding their path and seeing God in their life, and how he works through them and with them. And each experience is different. Sometimes it is a near-death experience. Sometimes it is a miraculous healing. Sometimes it's my crazy path. But it's all real, and that's what makes it work. That's the God essence, He is with us individually and as a whole,
Yeah. Yes, he is. Thank you so much, Kelley. And the song again, this mother and child reunion, this, what was it? This strange and mournful day, and the prayers and just everything. It's just, I think it's one of the most impactful episodes we have ever done. Episode 102 was the original with Kelley. I'm also reminded today, actually, as I record this today, this is Thursday, August 15th. I can't help but remember my own mother and child reunion. It happened 25 years ago today, my reunion with our heavenly mom. And I'm looking, there's so much blue in front of me now here. Our Lady of Fatima blue, Mary blue, that blue that we know, many of us know so well. We went to Mass today, and as we're walking across the parking lot, my wife and I, we're talking to our friend Chris is over here, and Julie's over there, and and suddenly I just walked through. This isn't a parking lot, right? We're in the middle of a parking lot, and suddenly I walked through this huge scent of roses, and I just stopped and went, whoa, what was that? There's no rose bush nearby, right? And I went, oh, that's right. It's the Feast of the Assumption, of our Mary's Assumption into heaven, body and soul. And it was on this day 25 years ago that Mary came and got me and delivered me to her son, because I prayed a prayer that day in this house as I was crying upstairs in the bedroom. Elizabeth and the kids were out shopping or something, and I was just miserable. I had the greatest job in the world, greatest wife and kids in the world, I'm living in the greatest neighborhood in the world. Everything's just great. And I was miserable and crying, and I just threw a prayer up there. I said, God, I don't know what I'm missing, but you do. Bring it on. And I think Jesus caught that prayer, handed it off to his mom, and said, go get him. Bring him back to me. And so that's why when I looked back weeks, months later to say, what day did I do that prayer? It was this day, 25 years ago today. So the mother and child reunion for me was 25 years ago today, and I am forever thankful to my mom in heaven, my heavenly mom. Thanks, Mary. All right, I need your story. Video would be great. People love looking at your face. They just do. Audio, love it. It's your story. Let me know what it is. Thanks for the Patreon help in making this go. Patreon.com. Thanks. We need you. And I'll see you next week here at Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack. Look at me.
Looking at you. Look at me.